Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Police confirm arrest of an Igbo leader in Lagos, Frederick Nwajago, over alleged inciting statement he made in a viral video. In Osun State, police begin search for passengers kidnapped on Ikirun-Osogbo Expressway. 21 suspects paraded in Zamfara State for post-election offences as well as banditry and kidnapping. On the foreign scene, Pope Francis jokes that he is still alive as he leaves hospital in Rome after 3 days. Good evening. This is News at 7 on Western Spring Television. My name is Damilola Raphael. The Nigeria Police Force has confirmed the arrest of the Eze of Ajao Estate in Lagos, Frederick Nwajago, over alleged inciting statement he made in a viral video. In the clip that surfaced on the internet yesterday, Nwajago, who was dressed in his royal traditional regalia, could be heard saying Igbo indigents in Lagos must recruit members of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, for the safety of their properties. Spokesperson of Lagos Police Command, Benjamin Hundeyin, confirmed that Nwajago was arrested today. The police spokesperson also disclosed that Nwajago had been taken into the custody of the Department of State Services. Reports said Nwajago was arrested in a hotel located in the Ejigbo area of the state, noting that the chief had fled his palace after the DSS officers arrived there. In the meantime, the Abia State Police Command has alleged that an attack on its men by some members of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, resulted in the deaths of 5 members of the group. The claim is contained in a statement by the command's PRO, Jeffrey Ogbonna. It was gathered that 5 members of the group were shot dead in Osusu, Aba, yesterday as they were on a procession across Aba. Some of the residents said the group was peacefully protesting the continued detention of IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu when the incident happened. But the police said they were armed with petrol bombs, machetes, battle axes, and other dangerous weapons. In Osun State, not fewer than 4 passengers, including a driver, were reportedly kidnapped yesterday by gunmen who hijacked their car on Ikirun-Osogbo Expressway. It was learned that the victims were coming from Iragbiji, navigating towards Osogbo before they were accosted by the gunmen. The driver of the vehicle, however, escaped from the kidnappers' den, while the remaining 3 other passengers are said to still remain in captivity. Osun State Police Public Relations Officer Yemisi Opalola said the police could not provide the number of people kidnapped, but disclosed that search and rescue mission was ongoing. SP Opalola further explained that the vehicle of the victims, which was abandoned, has been towed to a police station in Ikirun. Meanwhile, the operatives of Osun Amotekun Corps have dislodged armed robbers terrorizing motorists along Akure-Ibadan Expressway during their routine patrol, where they recovered a Ford J5 vehicle loaded with diesel. The attention of the operatives was called to the robbery incident by passers-by plying the route, and they swung into action and dislodged the armed robbers, who later ran into the bush. Confirming the incident, Amotekun Corps Commander Bashir Adewimbi said the Corps has reached out to the owner of the recovered items, adding that the vehicle and other items will be handed over. He urged residents of the state to expose criminals in their environment to security agents and that they should be security conscious. Elsewhere, the federal government has so far released 15 billion naira for the repatriation of internally displaced Nigerians from the 3 neighboring countries of Chad, Cameroon, and Niger. This was disclosed by Governor of Borno State, Babagana Zulum, after a meeting of Repatriation, Return and Resettlement Committee chaired by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo at the State House, Abuja. The IDPs were those who fled to the neighboring countries at the height of Boko Haram and other terrorist activities in the northeast. The Borno State Governor said the committee discussed modalities for the implementation of the repatriation.
A few months ago, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has established a committee for the repatriation, return and settlement of IDPs that are living in the Republic of Chad, Cameroon and Niger to Nigeria. Based on the recommendation of the chairman of this committee, which is the Vice President, the sum of 15 billion naira has been released to the committee. We are here to discuss modalities of implementation. Who does what? So far, so good. A lot has been discussed. Many items will be procured so that the repatriation exercise will take place with immediate effect. More than about 300,000 were repatriated. But under this phase, we are yet to begin the process. Yes, this is the first phase of the repatriation exercise we shall embark upon very soon. Guidelines were provided to respective agencies that are to handle this matter. Modalities means what should be given to the individuals in terms of food and non-food items, what type of houses shall we build, what is the transportation medium, what is the minimum threshold required to return people from the neighboring countries to Nigeria. These are some of the issues that have been discussed according to the international best practices.
The federal government has expressed its determination to strengthen the capacity of non-governmental organizations amongst less privileged Nigerians. Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Dr. Zani Gwazo, represented by Ahmed Mahmoud, said this while declaring open a one-day capacity-building workshop for social development in Abuja. He said NGOs play critical roles to complement government efforts in providing the necessary support to members of the society. He therefore urged NGOs to develop competent and performance-based policies as well as implement institutional monitoring programs for better outcomes.
Training programs such as this are very necessary to update ourselves on the ministry's mandate in order to better the lot of the vulnerable members of our society. It is also an opportunity to brainstorm on strategies for addressing their concerns through effective programming, strengthening networking between the ministry and NGOs. It also stresses the need for collaboration and partnership as key to bridging the resource gaps which organizations experience when they stand alone. At the end of this workshop, it is expected that participating NGOs will have been fully equipped to render better services in the areas of their competence. The high caliber of resource persons engaged by the ministry for this workshop are bound to deliver.
Globally, millions of children are involved in child labor, with low and middle-income countries like Nigeria mostly hit. In this report, Joseph Atawa examines the level of child labor in the country with a focus on Osun State.
For many children in Nigeria, even before they are old enough to savor the fleeting miracle their childhood is, the most precious gift is savagely snatched away from them. One of the main culprits is child marriage, but an equally culpable culprit is child labor, which has become rampant over the years. Some persons argue that child labor steals the innocence of childhood and thrusts children into adulthood long before they are ready, denying them the understanding and enjoyment that comes with truly being a child. Just recently, Recently, the International Labour Organization stated that no fewer than 15 million children are engaged in child labor in Nigeria. Don't forget that the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association (NECA) also listed communities in Niger, Ondo, and Osun State as some of the communities where child labor is prevalent in Nigeria. In light of these, we took a trip round Osogbo during school hours, and what we saw was disheartening. Kids were seen selling on the streets, while some were just roaming around. While some will argue that the level of poverty is the cause of child labor in Nigeria, many, like Kosli Adebibigbe, a medical doctor and the executive director of Value Female Network, believes that it's a thing of the mind, and under no circumstances should a child be allowed to do any other work aside from house chores.
Child below 18 years goes to hawk or goes to engage in sort of some paid labor to make family meals or even to take care of herself. That child is not supposed to work according to Nigerian law, according to the child rights law, which have been domesticated in most of the states in Nigeria. A child is supposed to be a child. A child is not supposed to work to take care of him or herself, nor the family, nor caregiver, nor anybody.
At 4:35 p.m. after school hours, we took to the streets again to see for ourselves the level of street hawking and children selling for their parents after school. At a beer parlor, we met 12-year-old Ronke Ademola selling drinks for her parents. She explained how heartbreaking it is for her, but she's left with no choice.
I feel bad because if I came to school, I do the house chores, I self my mother won't be able to participate in what they give me in school. So my teacher complained about me that I'm not doing well.
Just around Okebale, Osogbo, we met another, Jumoke Olaniyan, a 14-year-old child who explained how she feels working after school.
I personally don't feel comfortable because after coming back from school, I don't have time to do my homework and I feel somehow.
Over the years, child hawking and selling for their parents has been a means of survival for many living from hand to mouth, while for some, it's a way to assist their parents. We spoke to so many parents like Mr. Bayo Ogundele. He says a child hawking or selling for their parents has been part of the culture.
If you are not from a well-blooded, blue-blooded family, I don't know how you are going to do it in the very circumstance we have found ourselves. Because if you are not a child from Otedola's family or from Dangote's family that has got the wherewithal to feed their children, to send them to a very high-paying school, I don't know how you are going to do if you are not going to help your mother in doing some kind of helping them in some kind of trades. Because I could remember when we were young, we also passed through the same thing. Yes, it is a tradition, really. But in the Western worlds, maybe about 90% of the upkeeps for children have been born by the government. So how many is left for the parents? Very few things for the parents. So the culture is in our world is very nice.
Kosli Adebibigbe, owner of a non-governmental organization, disagrees with the parents, saying child labor is child labor, no matter how we try to paint it.
Truth is that if you as a parent, you are not ready to, and that's why we preach family planning and we talk to people about a lot of ways you can plan your family. If you know that you're not ready to take care of a child, you cannot bear the responsibility. It's better you plan your family in such a way that the little you have will be enough to take care of them. I want to urge parents, I want to urge caregivers, I want to urge them to do more in protecting children.
In 2003, then Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo signed the Child Rights Act into law to preserve the rights of children and protect them from exploitative labor. But 17 years later, millions of Nigerian children still take on physical challenging work to earn money to survive or to support their families. Questions begging for answer remains: should government tackle the problem of poverty? Should there be free education as well as free meals in school for children? Should there be absolute disregard for institutions that encourage child labor? Will this put an end to child labor in Nigeria, most especially Osun State, where child labor is prevalent, according to NACA? These and many more are begging for answers because the Nigerian child deserves a better life. Joseph Atewe, Western Spring Television.
You're watching News at 7 on Western Spring Television. Still to come, presidents of Cuba and Nicaragua congratulate President-elect Bola Tinubu for winning Nigeria's election in February. We'll bring you more on this when we return.
On 16th September 1923, named Harry Lee Kwan and known as Lee Kuan Yew, he was often addressed by his initials of LKY. Lee Kuan Yew was a barrister and the first Prime Minister of Singapore between 1959 and 1990. Educated at Raffles Institution from 1936 to 1940 and the Fitzwilliam House between 1947 and 1949, Lee Kuan Yew established a highly effective and anti-corrupt governance system that midwives the transformation of Singapore into a high net worth income economy within a generation. He never hid his exception to Western mode democratic ideal, which he believed had not assisted developing nations to attain good government. Before his death on 23rd March 2015, the People's Action Party, which he founded, had used its political influence to establish the United World College of Southeast Asia to expand his economic ideas among countries that constitute the Asian Tiger. Western Spring Television identifies Lee Kuan Yew as a major character in history. The history of guns is traced to China. The Chinese had developed a technology civilization that produced devices identified as guns at about 1000 AD. By the end of the 13th century, the devices had become true guns and described as metal barrel firearms that fired single projectiles which occluded the barrel. When did gun become an instrument of war? The first battles to be decided by firearms were between French and Spanish soldiers. The early 16th century warfare included Magnano in 1515, Bicocca in 1522, and Pavia in 1525. The wars were fought in Italy. The gun is a weapon of destruction and death, but humanity sees it as a potent instrument of family destruction. People with guns feel safer even if they don't display it. Western Spring Television identifies history of guns as a watershed event in history. Named Mao Zedong at birth, but globally known as Mao Zedong, he was a Chinese revolutionary and founder, People's Republic of China, which he led as chairman of the Chinese Communist Party from 1949 until his death in 1976. He was a communist who believed in the attainment of power by the instrumentality of gun. His wise saying, "Political power grows out of the barrel of gun," formed the major plank of his revolutionary struggle for the control of China. In the long span of his leadership and political power, Mao Zedong relentlessly entrenched the communist philosophy in China, which emphasized the revolutionary struggle of the vast majority of people against the exploiting class and their state structures. The communist leaders defined the class struggle as people's war. Mao Zedong was a story of grass to grace, having risen from peasantry to preeminent status as China's most respected leader. Western Spring Television identifies Mao Zedong as a major character in history.
Welcome back. This is still News at 7 on Western Spring Television. A reminder of our headlines. Police confirm arrest of an Igbo leader in Lagos, Frederick Nwajago, over alleged inciting statement he made in a viral video. In Osun State, police begin search for passengers kidnapped on Ikirun-Oshogbo Expressway. 21 suspects paraded in Zamfara State for post-election offences as well as banditry and kidnapping. On the foreign scene, Pope Francis jokes that he is still alive as he leaves hospital in Rome after 3 days. A bungalow has been burnt to ashes at Maboreje community in Ikirun, Ifelodun local government area of Osun State. The cause of the inferno that started around 3 in the afternoon today could not be ascertained yet. 2 residents of the community said the collective efforts of residents and passers-by prevented the fire from affecting nearby houses. Eyewitness reports indicate that people of the community had earlier contacted the fire service office at Ekoinde Garage, but personnel there allegedly claimed that their vehicle was faulty, hence they could not do anything to salvage the situation. The Lagos State government says rehabilitation work will be carried out on the 3rd Mainland Bridge tomorrow to repair identified failed or peeled asphaltic sections. The State Commissioner for Transportation, Dr. Frederick Oladeyinde, in a statement disclosed traffic diversion plans for the rehabilitation process occurring between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Citing the readiness of the Lagos State Public Works Corporation to carry out the project, Dr. Oladeyinde explained that traffic would be diverted from one lane to another lane at the identified failed asphaltic sections on the bridge. He added that this was expedient to solve tailbacks along the bridge at the peak period as a result of the failed sections. Dr. Oladeyinde assured Lagosians that the Lagos State Traffic Management Authority, LASTMA, would be on ground to direct traffic to ameliorate the inconveniences. The statement further implored motorists to be patient as the measures taken are aimed at providing quality and safe road infrastructure for everyone. In other news, Kano State's Governor-elect Abba Kabir Yusuf has again warned all subsisting and prospective lenders to the state government to stop forthwith. A statement by Chief Press Secretary to the Governor-elect Sanusi Tofa said effective from March 18th to May 29th, no lender shall approve and issue any loan facility to the state government without the express consent of the incoming administration. According to the statement, any such loan facility approved and issued to the Kano State government between the date of election and the date of swearing in without explicit knowledge and consent of the incoming administration will not be honored by the new administration. The governor-elect had on Thursday directed a public advisory to all individuals, groups, and organizations to stop ongoing construction in public places immediately. Cuba President Miguel Diaz-Canel and Nicaragua President Daniel Ortega have congratulated President-elect Bola Tinubu for winning the general election in February. In a statement, Tunde Rahman, media aide to Senator Tinubu, said the congratulatory messages were conveyed in separate letters. Mr. Rahman quoted the Cuban president as describing Senator Tinubu's victory as a reaffirmation of the will to continue to strengthen the historic relations of friendship between the two countries. On the part of Nicaragua, the message signed by Mr. Ortega and country's Vice President Rosario Murillo gave its best wishes to Nigeria. Also, the Developing Aid Organizations for Economic Cooperation, known as D8, while congratulating the president-elect, said it looked forward to working with his administration. Meanwhile, the Inter-Party Advisory Council, a coalition of the 18 registered political parties, has raised concerns over plots of interim government by unknown persons. Saying this would scuttle the nation's democracy, IPAC said it amounted to treason and a civilian coup. The organization called on the Department of State Services to name, arrest, and prosecute the plotters of interim government in accordance with the law to serve as a deterrent to others. The DSS had raised the alarm that following the 2023 general election, some aggrieved persons were planning to destabilize the country by instituting an interim government. But the national chairman of IPAC, Yabaji Sani, told journalists in Abuja that the allegation, if true, was treasonable and a civilian coup.
In strong terms, the call and plot to install an interim government in Nigeria. It is a civilian coup, treason, absolutely unconstitutional, undemocratic, and unacceptable. IPAC rejects any attempt to scuttle, subvert, and truncate the nation's emerging democracy by reactionary and retrogressive forces. It is in an attempt to overheat the polity, cause confusion, political upheavals, impasse, and quagmire, as was the case in the infamous annulment of the June 12, 1993 presidential election that necessitated the hasty set-off of an interim government by General Ibrahim Babangida, which was headed by Chief Ernest Shonaka in August 1993. Council notes the statement by the Department of State Service, DSS, that it has uncovered a plot by some persons to violently disrupt the nation's peace and install an interim government. Council demands that the country's intelligence service should name the plotters, arrest, and prosecute them in accordance with the law of the land to serve as a deterrent to others who would resort to self-help to achieve their selfish political ambitions.
In Zamfara State, the police command has paraded 21 suspects for various criminal offenses, including banditry, kidnapping, theft, and vandalization, amongst others. Public Relations Officer of the command, SP Mohammed Shehu, said 17 of the suspects took part in post-election violence that led to the vandalization and looting of public and private properties, including the All Progressives Congress campaign offices across the state capital. Items recovered are 2 semi-silent generators belonging to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Guzul, 2 refrigerators, vandalized doors, electronics, couches, 40 pieces of women's wrappers, burglar-proof for windows, and pillar reinforcement rods. It would be recalled that police detectives led by the Commissioner of Police, Kolo Yusuf, had earlier arrested 40 suspects, recovered some of the looted items. The police command in Zamfara also arrested a wanted notorious bandit accused of terrorizing the state and environs. On the foreign scene, Pope Francis has joked that he is still alive as he left hospital in Rome after a 3-day stay. He was admitted to Gemelli Hospital midweek with breathing difficulties and later diagnosed with bronchitis. The Vatican had said he was responding to antibiotics and would be released today, depending on test results. The 86-year-old pontiff was seen smiling and waving from the car before getting out to speak to a crowd. He then headed for the Vatican. The Pope's admission to hospital came ahead of the busiest week in the Christian calendar to mark Easter. Holy Week, as it is known, includes a busy schedule of events and services that can be physically demanding. In the United States, a fast tornado blasted through the state of Arkansas, killing at least 3 people and injuring dozens others. The twister cut off roofs and walls from many buildings, flipped over vehicles, and downed trees and power lines. Governor of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, said 2 fatalities occurred in Wayne, about 10 miles east of Little Rock. Earlier, a blast of extreme spring weather swept much of the United States, threatening the nation's midsection from Texas to the Great Lakes with thunderstorms and tornadoes. Emergency Management Director Jim Pertl said the storm caused 3 fatalities in Sullivan County, Indiana.
Today has been a very hard day for the state of Arkansas, but the goodness of this is that Arkansas and Arkansans are tough and we are resilient, and no matter what comes our way, we will get back up the next day and keep moving. We will help our neighbors. We will ensure that every Arkansan who needs assistance has it. Our message and our mission is really simple. The people come first and the paperwork will come second.
Russia has taken the presidency of the United Nations Security Council despite Ukraine urging members to block the move. Each of the council's 15 members takes up the presidency for a month on a rotating pattern. The last time Russia had the presidency, February 2022, it launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It means the Security Council is being led by a country whose president is subject to an international arrest warrant for alleged war crimes. Despite Ukraine's complaints, the United States said it could not block Russia, a prominent council member, from assuming the presidency. The other prominent members of the council are the UK, US, France, and China. The role is mostly procedural, but Moscow's ambassador to the UN, Vasily Nebenzia, told the Russian TASS news agency that he planned to oversee several debates, including one on arms control. In the Middle East, Iranian authorities have ordered the arrest of 2 women after a viral video appeared to show them being attacked by a man for not wearing the hijab. Video footage widely shared on social media in Iran appeared to show the 2 female customers who were not wearing the mandatory hijab or headscarf and the shop being assaulted by a man after a verbal altercation. The footage shows the man pouring a bucket of what appears to be yogurt on the 2 women's heads before he is confronted by the shopkeeper. The judiciary's Mizan online website reported that authorities issued an arrest warrant against the man on charges of committing an insulting act and disturbance of order. But it added that arrest warrants were also issued for the 2 women for committing a forbidden act by removing their headscarves. It comes after the death in custody of Mahsa Amini in September sparked months of protest after the 22-year-old's arrest for an alleged breach of the strict dress code for women. Hundreds of people were killed, including dozens of security personnel and thousands arrested in connection with what Iranian officials described as riots fomented by Israel and the West. Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi today reiterated calls affirming that Iranian women should wear the hijab as a religious necessity. Still ahead, Wema Bank announces Maruf Hosseini as substantive managing director following approval by CBN. We have more on this and other business stories after this break. Please stay with us.
Fumilayo Ransom Kuti was an educationist and advocate of women's rights. She was recognized for her vitriolic comments against colonial policy of taxation as it affected the Nigerian women. Bere, as fondly addressed by her women followers, Fumilayo championed the initiation of universal adult suffrage, which gave an unprecedented leeway for women to contest elective offices and power to exercise voting rights. Married to a foremost educationist and teacher, Israel Oladoto Ransom Kuti, the first president of Nigeria Union of Teachers, Fumilayo Ransom Kuti was the mother of children who inherited her spirit of activism. Olufela and Be Ololari, the former, a renowned musical legend. She was the first female student of Abeokuta Grammar School and the first female to own and drive a car in Nigeria. The award recipient of Member of Order of Nigeria MON and Lenin Peace Prize, was born on 25th October 1900 and was killed on 13th April 1978 by rampaging road soldiers in Lagos. Western Spring Television identifies Fumilayo Ransom Kuti as a watershed character in history. The British Empire was the largest and the most powerful in the world. At its zenith, the empire embraced a quarter of the Earth's land surface and imposed her imperial majesty's rule on more than 458 million peoples across nations and continents. The empire took off with overseas possessions and trading posts established by England, spread over 3 million kilometers between 16th and early 18th century. Like previous empires, the British Empire began to crumble on its weight of overstretched territories and growing unrest in our various colonies. Today, the British Empire no longer exists. What is in place is the Commonwealth of Nations, a loose association of sovereign states which recognize the King of England as the titular head. Western Spring Television identifies the British Empire as a watershed empire in history. Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker, and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
You're welcome back. Now to business. Ibom Airlines has apologized to passengers for the delay they experienced while the management tried to disembark a passenger who caused the scene. The unidentified passenger was hoisted off the plane after he publicly spoke against the inauguration of the president-elect Bola Tinubu yesterday. Group Manager, Marketing and Communication, Anieka Essien Ete, in a statement posted on the company's Twitter page today, addressed the incident. Ibom Air apologized to the affected passengers for the time it took to disembark the passenger, which caused the departure to be delayed by an hour. The airline assured its passengers that it maintains very high safety and service standards and will never compromise the safety and security of passengers. Wema Bank has announced the Maruf Hosseini as substantive managing director and CEO following approval by the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, effective from April 1st, 2023. After serving in acting capacity since January 1st, 2023, Mr. Hosseini will be succeeding Adebola Adebisi following approval by the CBN. Mr. Hosseini's journey with Wema Bank began in 2012 when he joined as an executive director. Before his appointment as MD CEO, he served as deputy managing director in the last 4 years. In addition to Mr. Hosseini's appointment, the CBN also approves the appointments of Wole Akinyele as Deputy Managing Director and Tunde Mabanwoku as Executive Director. All appointments are effective from April 1st, 2023. African Development Bank, AFDB Group President Dr. Akinwumi Adesina says urgent action is needed to reduce the world's dependence on fossil fuels and harness Africa's renewable energy sources. The AFDB president, in a statement, said this at the Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue hosted by the German government. while underscoring Africa's success and enormous potential to become a global leader in sustainable development. Dr. Adesina highlighted the significant energy challenges millions of Africans still faced. According to him, a report in 2022 revealed that at least 600 million people did not have access to electricity, and 970 million lacked access to clean energy for cooking. He said to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 7 of affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all, Africa must connect 90 million people annually to electricity by 2030. The bank president said the continent must also shift 130 million people from dirty cooking fuels yearly. He acknowledged the scale of the challenge, noting that Africa's energy transition would require an estimated $100 billion annually between 2020 and 2040. Talking sports, Gabriel Jesus scored his first Arsenal goal since October as the Gunners restored their 8-point lead at the top of the Premier League with a comfortable 4-1 win over Leeds. Second place Manchester City's victory at home to Liverpool had cut the gap to 5 points, but Jesus' first half penalty put Mikel Arteta's side in front just after the half-hour mark. Leeds had created the better opportunities in the opening half-hour of the contest, but they fell further behind 2 minutes into the second half when Ben White converted Gabriel Martinelli's low cross via the underside of the crossbar. Arsenal dominated from that moment on, and Jesus made it 3-0 with a clinical first-time finish from Leandro Trossard's drilled cross. Rasmus Christensen pulled back a goal for Leeds, but Granit Xhaka's late header from Martin Odegaard's delivery completed the scoring with 6 minutes remaining.
We had a really complicated week because we had 6 or 7 issues with different players. Some of them traveling, some of them ill, some of them with little niggles that we didn't know whether we were going to be there. So to get in the right mindset to the game, it was a real concern. But I think we were super. We really went for it. The first 20-30 minutes were complicated as expected because the way they set up. And we were a little bit not neat enough in certain decisions with the ball, which allowed them to run. But I think afterwards, we took control of the game. We scored some exceptional goals and decided to win the game.
As you said, the assists almost as spectacular as the goals. Impressive, and so many people to talk about. But is Jesus getting off the mark after that big injury the biggest positive? So happy for him. Everybody was just clapping him. He's worked so hard the last 4 or 5 months. He's been through a very difficult injury with a lot of support from the staff, and today he got rewarded big time. First start, scored 2 goals. He was involved in every action. Really happy.
Meanwhile, Manchester City boss Pep Guardiola says his side were perfect despite conceding a goal in the 4-1 thrashing of Liverpool. He stated that Liverpool was always a threat on transition, but his side played really well, noting that this was one of the best performances in his 7 years in charge of the club. Mohamed Salah opened the scoring in the 17th minute before Julian Alvarez equalized for the home side 10 minutes later. Kevin De Bruyne made it 2-1 just a little over a minute after the restart before goals by Ike Gundogan and Jack Grealish secured the win for City.
No, an all game. The first minute and the 93. So even we were 1-0 down, the game it made an incredible build up with in one tempo, and after we were quicker and we changed the rhythm in the final third. So all the play, absolutely everything, everyone was at their top. Yes, but we analyzed the episodes and nothing involved. And before that, Riyad had 2 chances. So, but it's the way we play. So. Always had to be the results had to try to be the consequences the way we play, and today was really, really good. Of course, with 2-0 down will be more difficult, but even with the boost to concede the goal, the 0-1, we were playing good before, and after we could but I prefer don't review what happened time ago in many places. So it was not yellow card, the second one, so that's all.
And away from football, the International Olympic Committee, IOC, has criticized Ukraine's decision not to allow Ukrainian athletes to take part in the 2024 Paris Olympics qualifying event if they had to compete against Russians. Ukrainian government minister Ole Nemchinov announced the policy yesterday after the IOC issued recommendations for the gradual return to international competition for Russian and Belarusian athletes as neutrals. Athletes from the two countries have been banned from most elite international sporting competitions since March 2022, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine was the previous month. The Olympic body in the statement said if implemented, the decision would only hurt the Ukrainian athlete community and in no way impact the war that the world wants to stop. The IOC maintained that it is not up to governments to decide which athletes can participate in which international competition. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, here is a recap of our major stories. The Nigeria Police Force has confirmed the arrest of the Eze of Ajao Estate in Lagos, Frederick Nwajago, over alleged inciting statement he made in a viral video. In Osun State, the police command has commenced the search and rescue operation after no fewer than 4 passengers, including the driver, were reportedly kidnapped by gunmen who hijacked their car on Ikiru Oshogbo Expressway. The Zamfara State Police Command has paraded 21 suspects for various criminal offenses, including banditry, kidnapping, theft, and vandalization, amongst others. Finally, on the foreign scene, we brought you news that Pope Francis has joked that he is still alive as he left hospital in Rome after a 3-day stay. Please do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. Thanking you indeed for following through the news. I am Damilola Raphael, wishing you a happy April.